What's up, scholars? Welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be doing the last part of my Harry Potter readathon. We're going to be covering books 5 through 7, so Order of the Phoenix through the Deathly Hallows. These three are a lot more detailed than I ever remembered them being. They also brought up a lot of stuff concerning the lore of not just the wizarding world itself, but with Voldemort that often gets skipped over in the movies. There's a lot of details regarding the characters, side characters, subplots that just don't make it to the screen. And I have loved, absolutely loved, reading this series and diving deep into the just plethora of details that J.K. Rowling has left in these books. And rereading the series just reminds me how much I have enjoyed it, how much I love this story, I love these characters for the most part. Y'all will see some of the characters do get on my nerves, and I do express that. But for the most part, yes, I love this story, I love these characters, and I just enjoy seeing their journey. It's a very smooth journey. Nothing feels forced. Nothing about the actual story itself concerning the plot of Harry fighting against Voldemort. None of that feels forced. And I really like the natural progression of how he builds to facing Voldemort. So, I mean, this has just been a lot of fun. I have had a blast doing this series, doing this readathon. It's forced me to just take the time to sit down and read books again, read books that I know I've read before but haven't in a while, and it just made me take the time to just sit, relax, and enjoy the story. And it's something I really needed, was to just be able to sit, relax, and enjoy a story. I really loved this readathon. I'd love to do more of them. But let's go ahead and get on into it. We are going to be starting with book 5, Order of the Phoenix, and that one is a doozy. So let's go ahead and get started, and I'll see y'all in Order of the Phoenix. So I finished the Order of the Phoenix. This one is so long. I don't really have problems with longer books, but this one just felt like really long. I mean, it was almost 900 books, at least this edition of it was, and it just felt long on this reread of mine. I forgot of a lot. Like, this book holds so much information, like almost too much for me. It might have been just like the time I was rereading it and everything, but it was a really long book. It took me a long time to get through the Order of the Phoenix, so that might be affecting the way I'm looking at it right now, just because it felt like a really long book. The first time, I don't remember it feeling this long, but oh my, I had trouble getting through it this time. I mean, this book is still really good. However, it's definitely not my favorite of the series. This one, I think my biggest problem with it is just Harry and his attitude, all the anger issues that he has in this book, which I get it. I know why he has all these anger issues, so it's like, I understand it, but at certain points in the book, I was just like, okay, like, enough brooding, like, enough, like, being, oh, poor me, woe is me. It was a lot. Though I do like how some of his friends put him in his place, even though they have to kind of tiptoe around him because they're afraid that he's gonna, like, blow up at them. But some of them put him in his place, and I think the one who does this, I guess, in the best way is Ginny. Ginny puts him in his place very easily, very simply, and just kind of gives him a wake-up call of like, oh, well, this isn't all about me, and kind of reminds him that he's not the only one who's ever been affected by Voldemort or any of this other stuff. But yes, this book did feel really long, and because of Harry's just constant anger in this book, it was really hard to just latch on to a lot of what it was going on, at least for me. While I do understand like the whole dream aspect for Harry and how he's always constantly dreaming about either something that Voldemort is wanting him to dream about, or he's having these almost visions of what is happening at the current moment. He's very in tune with Voldemort's thoughts and feelings, so he can feel it when Voldemort is angry, he can feel it when he's happy, and a lot of the times when, you know, he goes into these like almost fits of being able to be so in tune with Voldemort, and like he's laughing whenever Voldemort's laughing and it's transferring over to Harry, or like getting violently sick whenever he feels like this anger or this just like a feeling of Voldemort killing somebody, or in this case it was the snake who was trying to kill Mr. Weasley. I do get that that is going to affect somebody and that is going to really, really mess them up in more ways than one. So I do have a lot of sympathy for Harry's character, don't get me wrong with that. I do appreciate his character. I like how they brought about the connection between him and Voldemort and how much it affects him, how much the similarities between the two are being brought into the focus because of how J.K. Rowling wanted to highlight the similarities so that later on she could point out their differences at the end of the book when Voldemort can't take over Harry because of Harry's heart and the way he feels everything, the way he has so much emotion inside of him, whereas Voldemort doesn't have any. And that's one of the biggest differences that sets them apart. These bad things happen and Voldemort doesn't feel bad about them, but when these bad things happen to Harry, he feels them too much. And that's like one of the biggest separators between the two. So I do like how she uses Harry's emotions and his changing emotions, these events, to highlight this. We get very in tune with his emotions in this book for that reason, in order to highlight the differences between the two and not their similarities, because the similarities are easier to see, especially when we see Harry so angry all the time. And, you know, he has that conversation with Sirius about good and bad, like good people and bad people, and or what if he's becoming a bad person and Sirius talking to him about it. So while Harry's psyche really gets visited very heavily in this book, especially in regards to like his outbursts with Umbridge or how he deals with certain situations, how he chooses to let his emotions or his curiosity get the better of him, aka when he's in Snape's office learning occlumency, and he decides after Snape leaves, he decides to go peeping through Snape's memories. In the movies, it has him attacking or using the spell on Snape before Snape can use it on him. In the book, he is literally looking at a Pinsy full of Snape's memories and decides, hey, I want to know, and sticks his head in there. He knew he was going to get caught, and yet he does it anyways, and risks Snape's anger and knowing what else. And it caused a huge conflict for him because he saw how awful his father was, and Sirius to an extent. He saw how awful these people he holds in really high regard, he saw how terrible they were when they were in high school. He saw how his mother absolutely hated his father, but then is left questioning how they ended up married, and to the point where he does another almost foolish thing to go to talk to Sirius just to ask him about what happened, about why they were like that in high school, and Sirius and Lupin trying to explain to him about their high school days and how they've all changed and all of this, and it just leaves Harry feeling even worse than before. He makes some dumb choices in this book, and I get it, he's a teenager. Teenagers make dumb choices sometimes. Everybody makes dumb choices sometimes, regardless of if you're a teenager, a child, or an adult. Everybody makes dumb choices. But because we follow Harry's point of view solely, it can be a little bit almost repetitive just to see him do the same things over and over like he hasn't learned his lesson. But I still do like Harry's character. I still like him a lot. It was just this book, I think it was also because of the size of the book, it just was a little overwhelming for me this time. What I do love about this book is the fact that we finally get the prophecy explained. How there was a prophecy about a boy born at the end of July that, his parents, I think it was his parents had stood or escaped Voldemort 3 times, and there were 2 people who qualified for that. It was either Harry or Neville. And Voldemort chose Harry over Neville. It could have been Neville. And that's why Neville's parents were tortured by Bellatrix to the point where they were in St. Mungo's, because they thought he could have been the chosen one, but instead Voldemort picked out and chose Harry as this person, as this threat that he felt most threatened by, solidifying that it was Harry the prophecy was talking about. And I love Neville in this book. Neville is so amazing. First of all, I hate that the books took away everything dealing with St. Mungo's and their trip there, because when Mr. Weasley was attacked, he wasn't just brought back to the Order's hideout. He was in St. Mungo's. That's where they went to go visit him. That's where they saw him. When they were there, not only did they run into Gilderoy Lockhart again and see him and a lot of other people in the war that ended up playing a pretty decent role in the books regarding like Voldemort's plans and how he was using and manipulating people. They also see Neville's parents in St. Mungo's and see Neville with them, or at least when he's leaving with his grandmother from their visit. So much of Neville's character development comes to life in this book. Not just concerning his parents, but we get more about what he is wanting, what he believes in. We see his progress in the DA, Dumbledore's army. In the movies, it made it seem like he barely was able to get one spell done by the end of their entire time together. No, he was doing great. He was able to stun things. He didn't have maybe the best aim out of all of them, but it was getting better and better each time they did it. He was able to do all of these different spells that he'd never been able to do before. He was getting more confident. He had more control over his spell and his wand, and he was doing fantastic. Good enough to stand a very good chance against the Death Eaters and the Ministry whenever they were in the Department of Mysteries. Neville was able to hold his own because of all of that training, and it wasn't just like dumb luck or anything. He was able to fire off these spells, and yes, they didn't always work. There were sometimes, it didn't exactly hit where he'd aimed, but he'd always make up for that, like when they were in the Department of Mysteries and the first spell he fires off takes both Harry and the Death Eater's wands, and then he tells Harry to duck. He tells Harry to move out of the way so that he could properly stun this Death Eater, and then he does. And even when Neville's hurt, disfigured in the face at the moment because of a spell, he continues to fight, and he is with Harry the entire time. He's the one with Harry. It's not Ron or Hermione or anything else. Hermione gets knocked out. She gets slashed in the chest. Ron is taken out by a jinx. And while the others are injured, like Ginny breaks her leg, Luna's okay for the most part. Neville's the one who continues to stay with Harry until the very end. He is like shoving Death Eaters out of the way. He's trying to help Harry as much as he can. Even when his legs get jinxed, he's still trying to help Harry. He's the one that Harry tosses the prophecy to, and Neville's escaping with the prophecy until his legs won't work, and then the 2 of them are going together. And about Neville, like, we've always thought of Neville just to be this really shy, skittish boy, but he is in Gryffindor for a reason. He's very brave. He stands up for his friends. He is there when it counts, and he does not tolerate anyone saying a bad word against the people who are in St. Mungo's. Not only just because it's personal, it's very personal to him, but he just cannot take it. When Draco is talking smack, because Draco is all bark, no bite. We all know this. He's all bark, no bite, and he does a lot of bark in this book. It's funny. When Draco is talking about, St. Mungo's, making these snide comments, trying to rile up Harry and Ron, because if Harry gets in trouble, that's more detention with Umbridge, and that means no more Quidditch for them. So of course Malfoy's gonna do that because he's trying to make Gryffindor's Quidditch team lose, which backfires on him. As soon as he starts saying all these taunts and these jests, it's not Harry and Ron he has to worry about. Neville comes from back, like from way in the back. He hears it and he comes striding forward. He's ready to pick a fight with Draco. Harry and Ron are having to hold him back so that he doesn't just attack Draco, and nobody talks about it. Like, come on. Like, Draco's been one of the bullies for Neville as well as Snape, but like, and Neville is here, sitting here ready to throw hands. I mean, Neville's always been ready to throw hands. Like, he's done it in the other books. But just the intent behind this one, like, he was the first one to charge. He wasn't just, like, helping out in the fight. He was the one who was going to start it. I love Neville so much. He gets such a great highlight in this book, and it's wonderful. It really is wonderful to see. I love Neville in this book. We also get Umbridge, and oh my gosh, I forgot just how much worse she was in the books than she was in the movies. Wow. The movies, as horrible as she was in the movies toned her down quite a bit. She was nasty in the books. She is so horrible and vile. I honestly just, the way she irritates me and just riles me up as her as a villain is worse than what Voldemort does. And that makes her one of the best villains in Harry Potter because of just the snide and underhanded ways that she deals with things. I think she does at one point use the Cruciatus Curse on a student. I think it's Harry, if I'm remembering correctly. It's a very long book. She tortures her students by having that writing be on the back of her hand. She ends up disbanding the Gryffindor Quidditch team, puts it back in place, but then it ends up banning Harry and the Weasley twins from it after they get into a fight with Malfoy when Slytherin loses. Because, of course, Malfoy's going to be a sore loser. He taunts Harry and the twins. They fall for it. They attack. And they're the ones who get banned while Malfoy just gets away with it because he knows how to make these situations work for him, which is annoying. But I just can't hate Malfoy. I really can't. I can't hate Draco. He was annoying in this book because of just all the taunts and jeers, because he's doing it on purpose, because of course he's going to want to see Harry get in trouble. But it was annoying because it worked too well, because Harry's anger issues always got in the way. She's a great villain, but I just cannot stand her. She was awful. And she was trying, like, from monitoring the owls, like, you couldn't send or receive an owl without it getting approved by her. You couldn't, all of the fires of, communication, like the fireplaces were always constantly monitored. She almost caught Sirius a couple times, and just everything that she restricted, everything that she was trying to do, the way she would do anything to get power, the way she was always trying to lord herself over the other professors. On some of it worked. I think there were 2 professors who that never worked with. One was Snape, because I think Snape was just like, this lady doesn't know who she's messing with, and so he was just like kind of like okay, yeah, yep, this is my evaluation, whatever. The only other one who never got ruffled by Umbridge was McGonagall. I absolutely love McGonagall in this book. She's brilliant, fantastic. And I completely forgot that Umbridge raided Hagrid's house with a bunch of others and were attacking him because he's a half giant, and she's got all like this huge prejudice against anything that's not human. So she hates centaurs, she hates elves, she hates Hagrid, She hated Lupin because he was a werewolf. Just absolutely awful. And McGonagall is the one who goes out there trying to get them to stop attacking Hagrid, and they all stun and hit McGonagall instead, sending her to St. Mungo's to recover because she got so injured. That solidified my hatred for Umbridge because I completely forgot about that. I completely forgot they did that to her. I was so mad. I love McGonagall in this book. The way she always stands up to Umbridge in like this very calm or just irritated manner. And I love how during her evaluation she's trying to teach and Dolores is doing her thing, trying to interrupt. I love how McGonagall puts her in her place, saying like, how do you expect me to teach if you're making noise over there? Puts her in her place. And when Harry gets detention, it's one of the more famous lines in this book is when Harry gets detention by Dolores for the first time. He goes into McGonagall's office afterwards and she tells him to sit down and says, have a biscuit, Potter, after she learns that he stood up to Umbridge and told her off. And one of the other best moments for McGonagall in this book is when she is trying to give Harry his evaluation because they're doing career evaluations, career talks, and he wants to be in order, and Umbridge keeps interrupting, and McGonagall finally turns to her and is like, do you need a cough drop, Dolores? I love it because in the movies it made it seem like she was backing down to Umbridge, and in the books she did not. She was even in Dumbledore's office when the whole Dumbledore's army came to light and they were trying to get rid of Dumbledore and put him in Azkaban. She was right by his side, ready to fight all of these ministry officials, ready to fight, saying like, nope, he's not by himself, you gotta take me too. And only stood down when Dumbledore was like, that's enough. Like, no, they need you to stay here. The students need you to stay here. I'll take care of this. She was so ready to fight Umbridge, and I love that. She was very loyal to Dumbledore, very loyal to the students, to the school. And I love that when Peeves is causing havoc for Umbridge after the twins leave, I'm about to get there, that she's like, yo, you gotta go that way, like giving him instructions on how to make Umbridge's life even worse and more difficult. She's an absolute legend. Snape definitely has a more prominent role in this. He is still a very antagonistic force to Harry just because he does not like Harry because of his father, which after learning what James and Sirius did to Snape, it's easy to see why he didn't like them. But besides his typical antagonistic role, he has a role in the Order and of playing both sides, but also teaching Harry occlumency so that he can keep himself from the Dark Lord. And of course, it doesn't really go as planned, but Snape is the one who sends the Order to the Ministry because he gets Harry's warning about Sirius, and he went to go check to make sure Sirius was there. Kreacher had lied to Harry. He checked in on Sirius and came back and realized that Harry and the others were gone. He knew where they were going, went to the Order to send people there. While Snape is very much still playing this antagonist role towards Harry, you can definitely see the undertone. It's a very small undertone right now, but there is an undertone of care for Harry, whether he would ever admit it or not. In this book, we also get the famous Weasley is Our King song, which got completely cut out. All of Quidditch really got completely cut out of this book in the movies, which is a shame because Gryffindor again won the House Cup even after Harry and the twins got banned because Ginny became the seeker in Harry's place. Ron was the goalkeeper for the team, and they got two others to fill in the spots for the Weasleys. And Ron at first was absolutely atrocious. He was awful, like really, just really awful at goalkeeping, to the point where Draco, and props to Draco for thinking of the lyrics and just creating this whole song, out of spite, creates the song Weasley is Our King so that all the Slytherins can sing it in jest to make fun of Ron during the matches to distract him. And it works until Ron finally just gets out of his own head and actually does pretty good. And when Gryffindor wins the House Cup, all the Gryffindors are singing Weasley is Our King, but with very different lyrics because they are now praising Ron. I love it. I do want to talk about the twins for just a second. I've talked about the twins in pretty much every book they're in. I love the twins so much. Love them, love them, love them. The twins in this book are fantastic. They really are like a breath of fresh air, but they're also very serious when times need it to be. Yes, so Percy pretty much betrayed his entire family and sided with the minister to pretty much cast aside his entire family, cast aside Harry, saying that Harry was making things up, that Voldemort wasn't back, and Fudge had given him the choice of, well, you're either siding with your family and therefore Dumbledore, or you're siding with me. So Percy decided to cut all ties to his family to have his job, this comfy job with the minister, and caused a huge problem with the family. But because of that, the way Fred and George get treated kind of gets highlighted even more because it makes it seem like especially Mrs. Weasley doesn't really count them as much as the others. She saw Percy as like her golden child, and now since Ron is gonna be a prefect, he's now her new golden child. She had Charlie and Bill, who were wonderful and were prefects and head boys as well, and she's so proud of Ron. She's like, oh, that's all of the guys, oh, that's all of the men in the family, and Fred and George are just kind of left to the wayside like, you would think we didn't even exist. So they're kind of cast aside, and the whole situation with Percy doesn't really help them because they don't want to have a typical job. They don't want to have that typical 9 to 5 or 8 to 5 or be what their brothers are. They want to do what they want to do, which is have a joke shop, and Miss Weasley just cannot wrap her head around it. She thinks it's a waste of time, a waste of money, and is constantly trying to drag down what they want to do. It creates a little bit of tension between them. It did in the last book as well. Since Percy was gone, that tension kind of got a little bit better because I think Miss Weasley was kind of afraid of losing anybody else. But we do still see how much she cares about the twins when that boggart is in the house and she's trying to get rid of it, and it keeps showing up as all of her loved ones dead, like, and it shows the twins, it shows all of her children, it shows Harry. So with that, we do still see that she does love and care about the twins. It's just they can often get pushed to the side. But in this book, they very much took a forefront in Hogwarts with the joke shop that they were planning, how they were doing all these tests on their suites and trying to get everything done with Lee Jordan, and how they were trying to manufacture everything secretly and really plan for their future. And then once, you know, they get banned from Quidditch, Fred and George are like, well, that's really the only reason we were staying. We don't really need any newts or anything like that. Time to go. Especially after Dumbledore left, the twins were basically like, yep, it's time. And they had a grand display of their suites, their gimmicks, everything that they could possibly do. And they had a huge show before they left. And I love, as they're leaving, they give an order to Peeves. Peeves, this poltergeist who wreaks havoc throughout Hogwarts, has always wreaked havoc throughout Hogwarts, doesn't listen to anybody but the Bloody Baron, another ghost, looks at these twins, these troublemaker, trickster, prankster twins, hears them basically tell him to make Umbridge life miserable, and Peeves listens to them, gives them a salute as Fred and George leave. And Peeves listens to them and fulfills that promise to them by continuing to make Umbridge's life an absolute mess. And I love it. I love the twins. They're so great. And they're off. And that by the end of the book, they've already made their joke shop. They already have a place. They've set up shop, and they are having smooth running businesses right now. So the last two things I'm going to mention is, of course, the Death Eaters with like Bellatrix and Lucius. All of them, their role in this was kind of pushed aside until the very end with that confrontation in the Department of Mysteries. They did the kids put up a pretty good fight against them, but they were outnumbered at the end, and when the Order showed up, they were able to help. And yes, Bella did kill Sirius, because Sirius, there's so much I could say about Sirius because he is amazing. He did have a lot of flaws as a character in this book that didn't go over to the movie. In the movie, they try to make him seem almost too perfect, too good, without highlighting some of the flaws that he still had, like the arguments with Snape, or just the general dislike and disregard for some of Dumbledore's orders regarding him staying in the house because he didn't want to be cooped up, he wanted to do more, and how he kept seeing Harry as James instead of Harry and would treat him as such until someone would be like, that's not James. Or even Sirius would be like, oh, well, you're less like your father than I thought, because he would have loved to do this. There's a lot of faults to Sirius, but he is still a very good character. I do love his character, how he's able to support Harry. He's wanting to be there for Harry, and they would do anything for each other. Like Sirius risked exposing himself just to be able to say bye to Harry on the way to Hogwarts. Always wants to be able to help. He's always ready to go to Harry if he needs it, and that's why he goes to the Department of Mysteries, because once they realize that Harry's there, Snape asked people to go. Sirius was supposed to stay home, but he didn't because he couldn't leave Harry there alone. He had to go help his godchild. And I do love Sirius's loyalty. I love him as a character. It's just so sad that for all of the build up we got. I mean, it was sad the first time. It was sad when we first saw it, but it's still sad. Like, after all this build up we get of how Harry and his relationship is changing and evolving and getting stronger, and you know, after this is over, Harry could go live with them and they could finally be a family. And to have that taken away because during Sirius's fight with Bellatrix, it's almost like he was taunting her, laughing, saying, oh, well, you can do better than that. And then she does. It makes me wonder, like, if he had just been if Sirius was serious about the fight, would it have had the same outcome? And Voldemort doesn't have a huge role in this other than just how he manipulated Harry and his mind, because Voldemort is a Legitimens and is able to look into others' minds very easily. When Dumbledore comes, he's able to fend off Voldemort, and we don't really see a lot of him other than that he's been exposed finally to the Ministry and everybody knows he's back. But the last person I want to talk about, and then I'm going to read this lovely, lovely little spot, is Ginny. I love Ginny. The way she is so quick on her feet. She's super sarcastic, super smart. She is a prankster like her twin brothers. She is able to fly very well because she grew up in a household of boys and was able to sneak out and fly whenever she wanted to. She really is a character. It's like, you know, she grew up with a bunch of brothers because that's how she acts, and I love her for it. She's a very kind person too, but she is also the first person to call you out whenever you're doing something. Like, she calls Ron out, she's called Hermione out, she calls Harry out several times in this book, which was a great thing because he needed it. And it's good that you have a character like Ginny who is so ready to say the truth to somebody, whether it hurts them or not, because that's exactly the type of person that Harry needs the most. It's not somebody who's gonna beat around the bush and be afraid of hurting his feelings. She's gonna say exactly what he needs to hear, regardless of if he wants to hear it or not. And we all need a friend like that. We all need somebody in our lives like Ginny who's gonna do that for us. She had a lot of great moments, like when she's hexing Malfoy and fighting back, and she does really good in the DA and then holds her own in the Department of Mysteries until her leg gets broken, but even then she's still trying to go on. Like, she's awesome. She's so cool. And one of my favorite moments for Ginny is when they came back from St. Mungo's after Moody was talking about how Voldemort could be taking over Harry's mind, that he could be possessing him, and Harry's all in his head of, oh, I'm the weapon, I'm the bad one, I'm this is why nobody wants to look at me, this is why they're all treating me differently, he just spirals without ever talking to anybody. He just goes all mental in his head without ever voicing what he's thinking. And they kind of drag Harry out of his room to get him to talk, to force him to talk. And he doesn't want to, and he's getting angry. And I love this conversation between Harry and Ginny because she puts him in his place so hard. And I love it because it also highlights what Ginny went through concerning Voldemort. It's on page 499 of my book. Yeah, growled Harry, his hands deep in his pockets as he watched the snow now falling thickly outside. All been talking about me, have you? Well, I'm getting used to it. We wanted to talk to you, Harry, said Ginny, but as you've been hiding ever since we got back, I don't want anyone to talk to me, said Harry, who was feeling more and more nettled. Well, that was a bit stupid of you, said Ginny angrily, seeing as you don't know anyone but me who's been possessed by you-know-who, and I can tell you how it feels. Harry remained quite still as the impact of these words hit him. Then he turned on the spot to face her. I forgot, he said. Lucky you, said Ginny coolly. I'm sorry, Harry said, and he meant it. So do you think I'm being possessed then? Well, can you remember everything you've been doing? Ginny asked. Are there big blank periods where you don't know what you've been up to? Harry racked his brain. No, he said. Then you-know-who hasn't ever possessed you, said Ginny simply. When he did it to me, I couldn't remember what I'd been doing for hours at a time. I'd find myself somewhere and not know how I got there. Harry hardly dared to believe her, yet his heart was lightening almost in spite of himself. I love that because this is the first time we hear Ginny talking about what happened to her in her first year when, Tom Riddle took possession over her. But also the fact that she is able to put Harry so firmly in his place by saying, like, it's not just you. How could you not come to me when I'm the only one who could have possibly understood what you're going through? Just the impact of that scene of him stopping in his tracks, that anger just boiling inside of him, just like dying out, looking at her being like, oh my gosh, I forgot. And then when Ginny says, lucky you, knowing that she's probably been plagued with that for so long. I mean, she was 11 years old when it happened, and she had to grow up with that, grow up with knowing that she had been possessed by the most powerful Dark Lord in history at that time when she was only 11, and used in a very dark and twisted way. And yet Harry, whenever they're talking about it, he goes into this, oh, woe is me, completely forgetting about her. And when she calls him out and confronts him about it, that's when he's like, oh yeah. Stops him on his spiral, and then he gets to confront her and ask her about it. Ask her if their experiences were the same, and we get more information about what Ginny went through, how she'd go somewhere and not realize how she got there, not know where she is or how she went there, and Harry knowing that it's not the same, like just that simple reassurance of knowing that he wasn't this horrible weapon that he was thinking that he was, just because he was able to talk to somebody, and he wouldn't have unless Ginny and the others called him out. I love Ginny. I love her character. I love how much she's growing, and just the way she's able to keep Harry in check while also showing growth for her own trauma and experiences regarding Voldemort. I just love that one. That was my favorite moment for Ginny in this book. It is just so simple but so powerful. One more thing, I did remember this just now. One more thing I will mention is Petunia. I knew her role, I remembered her role to a degree, but I did forget some of the specifics about the promise she made to Dumbledore and her sister, because she did lose her sister when Lily died. At the very beginning of the book, we see this come into play when, Vernon wants Harry out, and then this reminder comes to Petunia, and then she's like, no, he's staying here. He is staying here. She stands up to Vernon and says, no, he's not leaving. He's going to be right here. And knowing when Dumbledore finally explains everything, knowing the promise that she made, knowing that she had made that promise from the first night, knew about everything from the very first night Harry was there, it makes you think about her differently. It really does. Despite, yes, she still treated Harry badly. It doesn't excuse all of that, but it does explain why, despite the heavy dislike for Harry, why she never allowed him to go anywhere else. So that, I just wanted to mention that before I forgot it. But that's the Order of the Phoenix. This was definitely the biggest one of the bunch so far. I know the Half-Blood Prince is a little bit smaller, so I am looking forward to that. But this is still a good book, and we'll go on to the next one. Alright, so I finished Half-Blood Prince, and this had so much more information in it that I forgot about than I remember there ever being, especially regarding Voldemort and his upbringing, everything from his childhood to his ancestry to being at Hogwarts to what he was doing after Hogwarts leading up to the Horcrux situation. There was so much here regarding Voldemort that I completely forgot about. And on this reread, I learned a lot of stuff and was connecting a lot of things that I wouldn't have remembered connecting without just having a very extensive reread, which is what I've been doing. And it's been wonderful just to read the books back to back to back, because when you read them back to back without any interruption or anything, you catch a lot of stuff set up in earlier books that come back to play in later books, and we're seeing it here, and I'm loving it. I did like Half-Blood Prince a lot better than Order of the Phoenix. It is a little bit, well, no, not a little bit, it is much smaller, and I liked it a lot better. Harry in this book was 100 times better. I remember when I first read this book, I didn't like Harry because of the way he was just obsessed with Draco in this book. But this time when I read through it, it didn't bother me as much as it did the first time. I don't know why, but it wasn't as irksome as I remember it being. It still was just okay, we get it. Nothing like what he was in the fifth book. I could not stand him in the fifth book. But if there is a character that has taken Harry's place for characters I can't stand at the moment, it is Ronald Weasley. And this might be very controversial, but I can't stand Ron in this book. I mean, in the first few books of the series, he was great. He was a great friend to Harry and all that, and he's still a good friend to Harry, but just, oh my gosh, his personality is horrible. Especially as he's gotten older, just horrible personality. But especially in regards to, one, how he treats Hermione, and two, the just absolute temper tantrums and the poutiness that he has throughout this entire book. From him pouting that Harry and Hermione got into the Slug Club when he didn't, and getting visibly upset anytime they even bring it up or get invited to another party. He just gets angry at them, even though it's not their fault. He gets angry at them and gets really pouty and upset and stops talking to people, or has a small little fit where he'll bully like a first year, second year, or something like that. I get that Ron's main thing is he always feels like he's left out, that he's left behind because of everything with his brothers and his family, and that dynamic of insecurity that he deals with, of him not ever being enough. I get that, but oh my goodness, it is so unbearable in this book. From the way he just gets so upset at the tiniest thing, like literally the tiniest thing is enough to set him off sometimes. And then when you get to the bigger arguments, like for example, the argument he has with Ginny when he's trying to confront Ginny about who she's dating, because she's dating too many people for his liking, and people are saying things about her behind his back or behind her back, and he's hearing them and implying that Ginny is a little bit looser than she actually is, which is really rude to her. And you know, he's yelling at her for being with Dean, or he catches her kissing Dean at the time and just throws an entire fit. Ginny, of course, stands up for herself and puts Ron in his place, but after that, he just goes on a full-blown temper tantrum, especially after hearing, oh, Hermione kissed Crumb 2 years ago when they were here for the Triwizard Cup, and now he's gonna punish Hermione for that by just stopping talking to her completely and ignoring her for weeks, and then just not explaining why he's so upset. I've said it, y'all are probably so sick of me saying this, because I'm pretty sure I've said it in just about every single review that I've done. I don't like Ron and Hermione's dynamic at all. Try not to rant about him for the rest of this one, but Harry, this book, is obsessed with two different things: Draco Malfoy and the Half-Blood Prince, or more importantly, the Half-Blood Prince's book, his potion book. He happens upon the book when when he's getting into the potions class with Slughorn, and he starts doing very well in potions, better than he's ever done before, and he decides to keep the book because he likes doing well in potions. He thinks the book is teaching him more than any of his other professors have, which is a little ironic since it is Snape's book. So Snape is still really just teaching him that. And he just becomes obsessed with it to the point where he's just constantly reading the book, constantly poring over the notes in the margins, looking at all these spells that the prince made, and trying to figure out what they do, testing them out on people, some of them being funny, some of them, as we learned with Draco, not so fun. And he's just constantly has got the book on hand, to the point where even after he does get caught by Snape, who knows that Harry had that book, he goes and hides it in the room of requirement just so he doesn't have to turn the book over to Snape, because he still wanted to keep the book even though it got him into very serious trouble. So that's one of his obsessions. The other obsession is Draco, because from the get-go, while he was right, he just was so surely convinced, when he had no proof, that Draco was a Death Eater now. And he became obsessed to know what Draco was doing every single minute of the day. He thought Draco was the one who cursed Katie, and the poison mead that Slughorn had, which he inadvertently did through the work of Rosmerta, who worked in Hogsmeade. And he had put her under the Imperious Curse, and that's how he was able to kind of keep tabs on everything. Gosh, I have more sympathy for Draco than I do for Ron. After Harry and Hermione and Ron, they see Draco and Borgin and Burks, and they see him threaten him with something. So Harry automatically thinks that Draco's a Death Eater, and all these things keep happening, and he keeps harping and harping that it's Draco's doing, that Draco's doing all these things. He's a Death Eater. He's working for Voldemort. He's got this mission, Voldemort said, because Harry did sneak on the train and was listening to that. However, he almost takes his obsession too far by just watching Draco constantly on the Marauders map to see everywhere he is, and then scouring for him when Draco disappears into the Room of Requirement, trying to figure out where he went, to the point where he's trying to go to the Room of Requirement to catch Draco doing whatever it was he was doing. And while, yes, Harry's intuition was right, Draco was up to something, and he kept thinking that everybody was ignoring him, especially Dumbledore, but Dumbledore knew what was happening and was allowing it to happen, but Harry didn't know that, so he kept getting frustrated and thought nobody was listening to him, nobody was paying attention, so it made him more determined to continue pursuing this. Totally get it. It annoyed me a lot more the first time I read it. It doesn't annoy me as much now. I don't know what the difference is, but it doesn't annoy me as much now. One part of this book that I really want to talk about is all of the memories that Dumbledore shows Harry. From meeting Voldemort's family, the Gauns, and seeing Merope as Voldemort's mother, how she pretty much escaped from her brother and father, who were horribly, horribly vicious, to how she put Tom Riddle Sr. under the influence of a love potion to get him to marry her, and then when he came to, he left her while she was pregnant, and then she gave birth to Tom before she died, and that's why Voldemort ended up raised in that orphanage. His time at the orphanage, while the orphanage didn't treat them bad, he was very vicious from the get-go, from taking 2 younger kids to a cave to do horrible, horrible things to them, probably because the kids won't even say what happened, to stealing stuff, to hanging a rabbit, or was it a rabbit? It was hanging an animal from the rafters because he got into an argument with a child. Like, he was already very predisposed to violence at a young age, and nobody knew what to do with him. Dumbledore saw this, but thought Hogwarts would help structure himself. But in the memories, we see that Voldemort, like, as soon as he realizes he could go to Hogwarts, that he's a wizard, that there's rules that he has to abide by if he's wanting to go there, he automatically puts up this facade of gentleness and professionalism, a bit of courtesy to others, being respectful, and kind of masking that darkness that he has, and he does it so well. And I think it's funny that throughout all of this, throughout the entire part where we get his backstory up until the last meeting with Dumbledore, it keeps describing Voldemort as this, like, inexplicably handsome young man. And I think it is so funny. But I think it was intentional to show how dehuman he became towards the end, because when he comes back to Hogwarts, after you know he's already split his soul after this, and he comes back to Hogwarts to ask Dumbledore for a teaching position, and he comes to Dumbledore and he looks very disfigured. He's not as handsome as he used to be. His body looks a little gaunt. He's not put together like he used to be. And Dumbledore refuses, and from then it's just like he keeps de-escalating from how human he actually is, and it just removes himself further and further, so that, I guess you could say, that outward beauty that he had is stripped away from him. The more he loses his soul, the more he succumbs to all of that evilness that he just desires so much. I think it is a really good, it's a very interesting interpretation to physically show that, as well as just emotionally show like the difference in his characteristics as he progresses and as he gets worse. I think it's a really cool trick that she does in this book, but I just think it's really funny that this entire time people just keep calling him handsome. It's so funny to me. Another small subplot that I really like in this book is Tonks and Lupin. It doesn't get brought up. It's like subtly built up throughout the book with the way Tonks is acting, her new Patronus that is turned into a four-legged creature, not because, as Harry suspects, of her guilt over Sirius, but because she has fallen in love with Lupin and he doesn't want to be together with her because he's a werewolf and werewolves in the wizarding world are outcasts. They're not accepted into society and he doesn't want that for her, and it's breaking her heart so much that she can't properly, I can't remember what it's called, like she can't properly put herself together the way she normally does. She can't change her hair, she can't change her appearance. She looks very just dejected for majority of the book until the very end when Bill is actually attacked by Fenrir Greyback and scarred horribly and is told that he's going to have wolfish qualities, like he's probably going to have some of the characteristics of a werewolf from now on. And Fleur stands by Bill and stands up for him, confronts Miss Weasley about calling off the wedding because the Weasleys don't like Fleur at first and they keep trying to find a way like to call off the wedding. Miss Weasley doesn't like her, Ginny doesn't like her, they think she's too stuck up or she's too much for them. And at the end, Fleur really just puts them all in their place and she's like, I'm still gonna marry him, I still love him, his scars show that my husband is brave. Which I was just like, yes, you go Fleur, you go for it. That is awesome. She stood by Bill throughout all of that, and when she does that, Tonks turns to Lupin and is basically like, she just said it. She said what I have been telling you this whole time, and as Remus is trying to deny it or try to kind of find a way out of it because he doesn't want to put Tonks in that position, everybody around him is just like, do it. You're just too worried about how society will see you. And I think it's Miss Weasley who ends up saying the world needs a little more love right about now, which is a big theme for this book because, as we can tell with the whole Horcrux situation, the way Harry and Voldemort are predisposed for one another regarding the prophecy and what Harry has that Voldemort doesn't. And it's talking about love, that love is a stronger magic, gives birth to a stronger magic than the dark arts, than hatred and evil, than any of that ever could. So Tonks and Lupin's love story kind of being highlighted at the end of the book kind of shows that yes, love sounds very cheesy when I say this, but it's like, yes, it's that theme of love conquers all. And that's what they're kind of holding on to, and that's kind of inadvertently the message that Dumbledore gives to Harry, albeit in a much better put way and not as cheesy. But yes, he does have that same message that love is stronger than what Voldemort does. And of course Harry's just like, yeah, I get it, I love people, whatever. But the more Dumbledore explains it to him, the more Harry begins to understand why it's such a big difference and why love as magic is much more powerful than what Voldemort has. So I do love that Tonks and Lupin's story kind of connects to that major theme, as well as Bill and Fleur at the end. They both kind of connect to one of those major themes of love being more powerful, which I really do like. I really like the idea that this theme is being portrayed through some of these side characters, these side couples that we don't really see a lot of. We do get more Quidditch in this book. We get Ron again having bad nerves when it comes to playing keeper, and they did the whole tryouts. Hermione helped Ron out quietly with the Confundus charm on McLaggen. McLaggen in the book is not at all as charming as he's portrayed as in the movie. He is a very self-absorbed know-it-all who thinks he knows better than everybody, is mad when he doesn't get on the team, and then after Ron gets poisoned, he confronts Harry about it, makes Harry get him on the team, and then proceeds to completely screw over the Gryffindor team whenever he's too focused on trying to tell everybody how to do their jobs better during the middle of the game, not paying attention to what the other team is doing, and is so horrible at not just playing keeper, but being a teammate, because he's constantly like grabbing other players and being like, oh, this is how you need to do this instead. You need to listen to me. I know what I'm talking about, blah, blah, blah. Ends up hitting Harry with a bludger, his own teammate, his captain, and makes them lose the game. Sends Harry to the hospital with a cracked skull. And then after that is pretty much never heard of again. Like, he is a very stuck-up know-it-all who is not at all charming or engaging like he was portrayed in the movie, which I think he absolutely should have been because he's horrible. Speaking of Quidditch, Gryffindor does end up coming from behind to get a win, even though Harry cannot be in their last game, their last match, because he's in detention with Snape for cursing Malfoy. He can't even be at the match, but Ginny takes over as Seeker and wins them the game. And actually, it's after that game that Harry and Ginny end up dating, because as soon as he realizes they won and Ginny's running towards him, Harry just kisses her in front of everybody, and then they're like, well, we're dating now. And they date throughout the rest of the book until after Dumbledore dies. After Dumbledore's death at the funeral, Harry turns to Ginny and is basically like, I have to be doing things. I have things I have to do, and I don't want to get you involved with them. Ginny, of course, is like, I don't care. But Harry's like, I do. And they break up in a very temporary manner. It's more of a, he needs to focus on what he needs to do, and he doesn't want her to be put in danger by being attached to him. And they break up at the end of the book. However, Ginny in this book is just absolutely amazing. Not only is she just like incredibly talented at magic and hexes in particular, but she's so funny. She's very quick-witted, and she's super strong-willed when it comes to either defending herself or defending her friends or family. I love her. Just portrayed as such a strong character in this book. I love it. I love Ginny. How she's been able to, with Hermione's suggestion, to just ease up and relax around Harry and let Harry be the one to approach her, because throughout this entire book, Harry is fighting his crush on Ginny because he's like, that's Ron's sister. They end up together regardless of that, and Ron, hypocrite as he is, as Ginny calls him, lets them be together with little complaint. I know I'm not going in order of events as things are happening. Sorry about that. But I'm just kind of saying them as I'm reading them, reading notes and everything and things I want to talk about. But the next thing I want to discuss is the prophecy that Trelawney did that was overheard by Snape. Because Snape at the time was still in Voldemort's service, overheard the prophecy given to Dumbledore, and he was the one responsible for telling Voldemort about the prophecy, which led Voldemort to going after Harry. Of course, Snape has changed since then, as Dumbledore has said, but that doesn't stop Harry once he realizes that Snape was the one who overheard and basically turned them in. Doesn't stop him from hating Snape even more, which, with that new knowledge coupled with the fact that he saw Snape kill Dumbledore, just makes him have this burning hatred for Snape. And even at the end, when Harry is chasing after Snape as they're trying to flee the grounds because they have to get out of Hogwarts's area before they can apparate, As they're trying to get out, Harry is calling him a coward and trying to attack him, trying to use all of the spells that he learned from the prince's book. And Snape keeps stopping him, and then Snape gets furious, turning on Harry and saying, "Don't you dare call me a coward." Because at that point, Harry still has no idea anything about what Snape has done, anything about Snape's past, nothing. Other than what he saw in the Pensieve and what little he's gleaned over the years about like his relationship with like his father and all of that, he knows nothing. So he doesn't know why calling Snape a coward is the worst insult he could ever make. And then, yes, we get the reveal that Snape is the Half-Blood Prince, and we get where, in the book, we actually get where the prince comes from. His mother's surname was Prince. I can't remember if it was his mother that was a witch or his father that was a wizard. One of them was magical and the other one was a muggle. So that's where he got the half-blood, but he loved, I guess, the prince part. I guess it would be his mom that was a witch. He liked more the magical side. He would have clung to that a lot more, and thus he named himself the Half-Blood Prince. But we also get Slughorn in this book with his aversion to sharing the truth about what he told Voldemort about Horcruxes, how Harry ends up getting that memory, and everything that he actually told Riddle about Horcruxes, which ends up leading to Dumbledore's confirmation that there are 7 Horcruxes out there that that Voldemort has created, that they have to go out and try to seek and kill. They've killed 2 already, the diary and the ring. And because of all of the memories that Dumbledore has been showing Harry, they know at least 2 more of those Horcruxes, the goblet and the locket, because throughout all of the backstory that they got on Voldemort, Voldemort likes collecting things. He likes collecting things that are of high value or that mean something to him. Like the ring was a family heirloom. The locket is the heir of Slytherin. He's the heir of Slytherin, so of course he wants the locket. The goblet is one of the founding members. I think it's Helga Hufflepuff's goblet, and because he associates himself so closely to Hogwarts, of course he wants that heirloom, which leads Dumbledore to believing that something of Gryffindor or Ravenclaw is going to end up being another Horcrux. So they know at least 2 more of them. And Dumbledore already figures out that the snake, Nagini, is another Horcrux. So pretty much they have 5 of 7 figured out. And the 7th one resides in Voldemort himself, but it's the last one. He can't be killed until all the others happen. So they know the identity of 5. There's that last one kind of floating around that they haven't figured out yet. For the last part of this, I want to talk about Draco, because this is one of Draco's big moments in the series. But Draco in this book is, while he is an antagonist, he is definitely not a villain. He is more of a sympathetic character. We see him at the beginning of the book trying to act a little bit more proud of his position, of this job, this task that he's been given, that he is taken from Voldemort. But as the year progresses, a lot of people notice it. Draco is a lot more sickly. He's lost weight. He looks thinner. His face is like sunken in. There are bags under his eyes. His skin doesn't look healthy because he's been shut up so much. He looks physically ill. He does not look good. And all of the confidence, the superiority that he had in the previous books vanish as the year progresses, and he is more withdrawn. He doesn't try to get into many fights. He only tries to snap when you openly provoke him, which Harry does a couple of times, but they don't have fights like they used to, because In the other 5 books, they were fighting constantly, like constantly clashing and saying things to each other. He didn't do that this year. And he did have a clever plan. He did have a clever plan on how he was going to fulfill the task of killing Dumbledore. Though, as Dumbledore points out, half of his attacks were very half-hearted and it didn't look like he was being serious at all. As we all know, I don't believe Draco wanted to kill Dumbledore. I don't think he could have killed him. They were just more of attempts to make it seem like he was trying so that Voldemort wouldn't hurt him. From going as far as putting the Imperius Curse on Madame Rosmerta, to the cursed necklace and the mead that ends up not going where they were supposed to at all, to the way he was utilizing Crabbe and Goyle, making them drink Polyjuice Potion to turn into different people, most of them girls, to turn into different girls to keep lookout so nobody could figure out he was going to the Room of Requirement, to the way he figured out how to mend the Vanishing Cabinet in the Room of Requirement to get it connected to the one in Borgin and Burkes. He was very busy all year. He actually had a decent plan with the Vanishing Cabinet. That is a smart plan on how he was going to be able to bring help to him. But it took a toll. It took such a heavy toll, in fact, that Moaning Myrtle said that there had been somebody in the bathroom crying quite often, and that she would be there to comfort him. It's actually quite sad. If you think about it, this 16-year-old boy set about with a task to kill somebody much wiser, somebody much older, and much more skilled in the circumstances he had. Not just that, but being threatened about this task he was doing, and it all being too much for him, is very, very, very sad. And when Harry does end up confronting Draco, he finds him in the bathroom and he is crying. Not by himself, he's actually crying with Moaning Myrtle, like talking to Myrtle, saying like, I can't do it, but if I don't, he's gonna kill me. And you can see he's just at a loss of what to do. He doesn't know what he can do anymore, because basically he's in a lose-lose situation. Like, if he kills Dumbledore, he's in a horrible situation. If he doesn't kill Dumbledore, he's in a horrible situation, because Draco isn't a killer. We've known that he's a lot of talk. He talks a good game, but he's not one to do things like that, to actually enact things. And that arrogance and confidence that he had when he realized what situation he was in, it all disappeared. I do want to say one thing about Harry's fight with Malfoy. The movie didn't really capture the intensity of the fight, nor how Harry reacted to the fight, to Sectum Sempra, and specifically at least. There's another part I want to read that I have bookmarked back here, but I am just going to read this because this will explain it a lot better than I can say it. After Harry calls Sectum Sempra, says blood spurted from Malfoy's face and chest as though he had been slashed with an invisible sword. He staggered backwards and collapsed onto the waterlogged floor with a great splash, his wand falling from his limp right hand. No, gasped Harry. Slipping and staggering, Harry got to his feet and plunged towards Malfoy, whose face was now shining scarlet, his white hand scrabbling at his blood-soaked chest. No, I didn't. Harry did not know what he was saying. He fell to his knees beside Malfoy, who was shaking uncontrollably in a pool of his own blood. Harry knew immediately that he had made a mistake, because he, as Hermione said, used a spell that he had no idea what it was, and he faced the consequences of it. Though him and Malfoy are rivals, they have butted heads more than one time over the years, he never wanted to do that to him. He never wanted to cause that sort of physical harm to him, and as soon as he did, the instant regret, the going over to Malfoy trying to be like, I didn't mean to do this to you, like sitting beside Malfoy unsure of what to do just really speaks volumes about Harry's character, but also their rivalry as well, that it is just, it's a school rivalry. I really liked that moment that we're here, not that he attacked Draco. I really like that after he did, he immediately felt that remorse, which again ties into the whole theme of love and Harry being a very caring person, even for his enemies, even for people he doesn't like, and how Dumbledore talks about like Voldemort would have to have remorse and all these things, and because he doesn't, he's not able to take over Harry's body, but Harry immediately has that sort of remorse when he hurts somebody, even someone like Draco, who they have been butting heads since the very first year. I just thought that was a really good tie-in to the theme as well, but also just to show Harry's character and his instant regret with what he had done. And the actual part I was planning on reading to further show just how sad this whole situation with Draco really is at the very end of the book, where he's confronting Dumbledore in the astronomy tower. And they're there for several minutes. Draco's explaining everything. Dumbledore is talking to him. And it always breaks my heart. It broke my heart in the movies. It broke my heart the first time I read it, and it still breaks my heart now. This is their conversation when Dumbledore is trying to offer Draco options on what he can do moving forward. Says, "I haven't got any options," said Malfoy, and he was suddenly white as Dumbledore. "I've got to do it. He'll kill me. He'll kill my whole family." "I appreciate the difficulty of your position," said Dumbledore. "Why else do you think I have not confronted you before now? Because I knew that you would have been murdered if Lord Voldemort realized that I suspected you." Malfoy winced at the sound of the name. "I did not dare speak to you of the mission with which I knew you had been entrusted, in case he used legitimacy against you," continued Dumbledore. "But now at last we can speak plainly to each other. No harm has been done. You have hurt nobody. Though you are very lucky that your unintentional victim survived. I can help you, Draco." "No, you can't," said Draco, his wand hand shaking very badly indeed. "Nobody can. He told me to do it or he'll kill me. I've got no choice. Come over to the right side, Draco, and we can hide you more completely than you can possibly imagine. What is more, I can send members of the Order to your mother tonight to hide her likewise. Your father is safe in the moment in Azkaban. When the time comes, we can protect him too. Come over to the right side, Draco. You are not a killer." Malfoy stared at Dumbledore. "But I got this far, didn't I?" He said slowly. "They thought I'd die in the attempt, but I'm here. And you're in my power. I'm the one with the wand. You're at my mercy." "No, Draco," said Dumbledore quietly. "It is my mercy, and not yours, that matters now." Malfoy did not speak. His mouth was open, his wand hand still trembling. Harry thought he saw it drop by a fraction. Now, of course, the Death Eaters come, and Snape ends up killing Dumbledore after that. But that whole confrontation where he says, "I don't have a choice," because he doesn't. The choice has been taken from him. And Dumbledore trying to convince him, trying to console him. Draco thinking about it, but then he's like, no. And then trying to convince himself that he still holds the power, but then that last bit of push by Dumbledore saying, "No, it is my mercy that matters right now, not yours." And I think that's when it clicked for Draco that there was a possibility that he didn't have to do this, that he could be granted a choice again. But by that time, it was too late. It's just, I hate it so much. And I know a lot of people in the fandom have made this kind of like term of Harry is known as the boy who lived and Draco's known as the boy who had no choice. And it's a very kind of sad parallel between the two characters, two people who were brought up in very different situations, who had two very different paths and tasks chosen for them or set about for them, and how those choices or lack of choices affected their lives. And it's just, oh, it's all really Dumbledore's death, his funeral was sad, and now it's the end game. It's the end game with them needing to find the Horcruxes and take down Voldemort. That's all for this book. This book just makes me sad. Draco makes me sad. He's one of my favorite side characters. He really is. He's one of my favorite side characters in this series. But this book just makes me sad. But that's all for this one, and I'll see y'all real soon in the last book. Okay, so I finished the Deathly Hallows. This is one of my favorites in the series, especially after the reread. I forgot how much I loved this one. Oh my gosh, it was so good. All of the information in this book is fantastic. I love how detailed it was. I liked the dialogue. The characters were doing great in this in this book. And it was just overall just such a wonderful reread. Now there's things I want to highlight, of course, as always. First of all, I'm going to kind of cover this all in one fell swoop with Dumbledore and Dumbledore's past being revealed finally in this book. We get his family lineage, in a sense, kind of explained with his parents and then his brother and sister, his dad going to Azkaban for attacking 3 muggles, which we find out were the 3 muggles that brutally attacked and harassed Dumbledore's sister, Ariana. His dad took revenge on those muggles for what they did to her because she was a very talented witch. She was actually really good at magic, but those 3 boys saw her doing it and just brutally attacked her when she couldn't show them the trick, and what they did to her completely messed her up to the point where she couldn't control magic. She couldn't do magic anymore. And if she did, it was these random bursts that weren't controlled and nobody could anticipate. So to combat that, their parents said that Ariana was ill so that she wouldn't be put in St. Mungo's or deemed a threat to the magical world because of her inability to control her magic. And Dumbledore, being a young teenager at the time, obviously made some mistakes. He ended up befriending Grindelwald, which is another very powerful dark wizard that is mentioned, and he had very high obsession with the Deathly Hallows like Albus did, and the 2 of them hit it off. But as soon as they started fighting with Dumbledore's family and Dumbledore realized just how bad Grindelwald was, that friendship quickly fell apart. And because of that huge fight with Grindelwald and the Dumbledores, Ariana ended up dying because it was either Dumbledore or Grindelwald. It's never said who did it, but one of them cast a curse that ended up killing Ariana, and after that everything was different. Ariana was the one who accidentally killed their mother because of those uncontrolled bouts of magic, and it was a rebounded curse that ended up killing their mother. So after that, and after Ariana was killed, the Dumbledore family was just a wreck, and that's when Dumbledore immersed himself in studies and being a teacher because he didn't want any power. He wanted to stay as far away from that as he could because he didn't think he could be trusted with any type of power because of how crazy, in a sense, that he thought he had went whenever he was pursuing the Deathly Hallows and his friendship with Grindelwald before he went to duel him and he got the Elder Wand from him. And it caused a rift between him and Aberforth, his brother. That whole situation with that family and Dumbledore's past is crazy. Not even like a smidgen of that gets mentioned in the movie. It's just kind of glossed over, which is really unfortunate because it's such a very deep and complicated story, complicated history that gives, honestly, a lot more depth to Dumbledore's character. There were times when, like, especially some of the longer excerpts of either the book that Rita had written or the memoriam that Doge had written, Like, it took up a little bit of longer space, but I understand why, because of how important that was to figuring out the importance of the Deathly Hallows and kind of linking everything from the Hallows to the Horcruxes and that whole history all together. So I do understand that. Speaking of the Deathly Hallows, there's so much more of the origin and the story of the Hallows that got completely lost in the movies. And because it did, I had forgotten a lot of it. Like, Harry being the descendant of the third brother, the brother who had asked Death for the Cloak of Invisibility. Harry was the last descendant of the Perverals. Because he was that descendant, that's why his father had the invisibility cloak. That's why it was passed down to him. And that's why it is a true invisibility cloak, not one that is easily spotted or revealed. It is the only true invisibility cloak. The Hallows itself, from the Resurrection Stone being what was the Horcrux on the ring that Dumbledore destroyed, and Voldemort himself not knowing that it was one of the Deathly Hallows because he had no use for them. And just because he didn't even know they really existed, the only one he really knew about was the Elder Wand. He didn't know about the other Hallows. He didn't know he had made the Resurrection Stone a Horcrux. And Dumbledore, because he had recognized the Resurrection Stone, reached out to it without thinking, and that's what cursed his hand. It all makes it connect so much nicer whenever you realize how deep the threads go. From the Deathly Hallows to how Harry becomes a master of death himself by not only having possession of all three of the Deathly Hallows, even though at the time he didn't have the Elder Wand, it was still in Voldemort's possession at that time. He was still the master of that wand, but he had the cloak and the Resurrection Stone with him as he approached Voldemort. And since he owned the Elder Wand, he was a master of death. Another reason why he wasn't killed when Voldemort shot yet another killing curse at him. I really like the story of the Deathly Hallows and how deep it goes into the lore of the wizarding world. How it seems that even though so many people acknowledge the tale, not many acknowledge that it was true. That was the actual true tale, that they existed. That was one of Hermione's biggest holdups in this book too, is that she couldn't believe some of these things were actually real because there was no proof, or it didn't seem logical or likely, and it held her up tremendously because she couldn't imagine those being real, that they existed. Another thing that I just really love in this book is the development of Kreacher, the house elf that Harry inherited from Sirius whenever Grimmauld Place became his. Because Kreacher, of course, as we know, was a nasty little elf. He did not like Harry. He didn't like Ron and Hermione. He was so obsessed with the pure-blooded status of his former masters, and he wanted to continue serving that until Harry brings up Regulus's locket, and we get the truth that Kreacher had gone with Regulus when Regulus was a Death Eater with Voldemort to the cave that Harry and Dumbledore were in the previous book. Voldemort forced Kreacher to drink that potion so that he could hide the Horcrux there. Kreacher only escaped because he could disapparate from the cave itself, and Regulus had given him a task to destroy the locket, that he had to get that locket destroyed because Regulus and Kreacher had gone back to the cave. Regulus drank the potion. He did not make Kreacher do it. He drank the potion, got the locket, switched it out, and made Kreacher leave him there, and Regulus died in that cave. And Kreacher, because it is a Horcrux and there's only a very limited amount of magic that can kill and eliminate Horcruxes, Kreacher was not able to do it, and then the locket got stolen, and he was so distraught over it. When Harry brings all of this back up, and he has the false locket that Regulus had made. Kreacher does like a complete 180 because Harry starts asking him to do things, not ordering him, and there's a huge shift in the relationship between them. Kreacher is actually willing to help them. He's nicer not just to Harry but to Ron and Hermione. He's cooking them food, he's cleaning the house, he's very pleasant to be around. And then Kreacher, at the end of the book, in the final battle at Hogwarts, when Harry is about to face off against Voldemort for the very last time, Kreacher leads all of the house elves that are in Hogwarts on a charge against the Death Eaters, and says, like, do it for my master, do it for Regulus, like, let's take them down, defeat the Dark Lord. Like, I kind of forgot about that part. I forgot that Kreacher did that. I was like, oh my gosh. I love it. The development we get from Kreacher in this book is just fantastic. And it's not just Kreacher, like, we get a lot of the elves and species in these books that are considered lesser by normal wizarding society, and at the very end of the book, they're the ones who rally at the last minute to support the wizards to keep them from harm. You have the centaurs, for example, coming in and charging and raiding, even though they say they hate wizards so much. They fought against Voldemort. You had the house elves doing the exact same thing. Grop, Hagrid's half-brother, did his best, and he did an amazing job fighting back against the actual giants. It's just so cool to see the marginalized groups and of wizarding society that Voldemort didn't care about because he doesn't think of people like them. They're the ones who gave that last final push that was needed to overwhelm the Death Eaters and to give the wizards the upper hand. The actual journey itself, from starting at the beginning of the book to getting away from Privet Drive to losing Hedwig and Mad-Eye Moody, which Mad-Eye Moody, I completely forgot about this. They never found Mad-Eye's body after he was killed because it was such like a chaotic rush of everybody trying to figure out, you know, where to go and fight off the Death Eaters. And then when Harry and them infiltrate the Ministry, Umbridge has Mad-Eye's eye, his glass eye, on her door, and that's the eye that is watching everybody. And Harry steals it back. That's how they know that there's intruders, because he took the eye and later buries it in the woods to give Moody some sort of proper resting place. That's just so, that's so disturbing. That's so sick. I completely forgot about that. I completely forgot that she did that to his eye. But back to what I was saying. That was a little bit of a side tangent. Going from Privet Drive to the Burrow to Bill and Fleur's wedding, and then them leaving from there and then starting their journey of chasing down these Horcruxes, getting the real Horcrux from the Ministry, Ron getting hurt, and then the whole debacle with how the Horcruxes make them feel, and it ends up driving Ron away. He leaves after a huge fight. That whole progression felt so seamless and so natural, up even to the point of them going to Lovegoods, even after Ron joins back, by the silver doe that mysteriously guides Harry to the sword and Ron to Harry, because who could ever do that? Who do we know who has a silver doe Patronus? The way it progressed with like their quests and their journey to find these Horcruxes, to find clues from going to Godric's Hollow to Xenophilius Lovegoods to even getting caught by the Snatchers and taken to Malfoy Manor, to their escape to Gringotts, back to Hogwarts. Like, it all flowed very well together, and it made it very easy to read. It didn't feel like it was taking too much time, or they were staying in one place too long. Nothing was progressing, nothing was happening. There was always something going on that made it feel like everything that they were doing was worth something, that they were working towards something, even if they didn't know what, even if at points they were grasping for straws on what they were supposed to be doing, but they still managed to do something. Like, even Godric's Hollow was not just a complete waste because they gained some information there. They gained information at Xenophilius Lovegoods. They gained information at Malfoy Manor and got the wands and were able to get the hair from Bellatrix to do the like polyjuice potion and everything to go to Gringotts, where Gringotts was immensely successful, where they got another one of the Horcrux, escaped on a dragon, all of that, like all of it, even though it took up, I mean, that whole thing from their journey getting up to Hogsmeade to where they're about to go back to Hogwarts takes up over 550 pages. It takes up well over half of the book, but it didn't feel like wasted time. And in a book, one this long, and as the ending book to a series like this, it can be very hard to have that much going on this very long quest without making it seem like it's going in circles or it's pointless or it's dragging on or nothing's happening. It's very hard to accomplish that in a natural manner, but this book does that. It doesn't feel forced. The tensions between the three feel very natural because they're stressed, they're constantly moving around, they're not housed very well, they're in a tent, they don't always have food. Of course, emotions are going to be running high, there's going to be arguments, they're not going to always agree on what to do. So even their fights and like spats with one another makes sense in this setting. And yes, it makes sense to have it be one of these central parts. Like, yes, Ron left. No bueno for Ron, but he redeems himself, coming back, saving Harry, and then plays a huge role in the rest of the book in coming up with ideas on how to destroy Horcruxes, how, like, what their next move is going to do. He plays a very big role in this. Ron redeemed himself a lot for me, personally, in this book. Even Hermione in her narrow-mindedness and her not wanting to believe a lot of these things or a lot of these theories that are popping up, she plays more of a voice of reason, of a voice of, I guess, realism that keeps them grounded enough until she finds the proof that, okay, yes, you've got a point here, okay, yes, this has to be where we go next, this has to be something, we need to figure out what this is. So she kind of keeps them grounded in a sense, even though it can seem like she's being overbearing with all of this narrow-minded talk, as Lovegood puts it, but it pays off to her favor a lot of the times. Hermione also has a huge role in this, not just for keeping everybody together, coming up with these ideas, but in Malfoy Manor, when she is taken by Bellatrix and tortured, she is able to withstand that much pain and pressure and not give away what happened, not give away how they got the sword. And for her to be able to go through that much torture and not give anything away, huge props to her. That's incredible. Speaking of Malfoy Manor, not only is this where our beloved little elf, Dobby, dies, but yes, at Malfoy Manor, when Hermione jinxed Harry's face so he wasn't recognizable. And I love Draco. He just completely turns his back on his mother and father pretty much when they're asking him to identify Harry or even identify Ron and Hermione because their faces aren't messed up. They look exactly the same. He knows exactly who they are and he can still recognize Harry. But instead of doing that, he just turns his back, and every time they ask him, he's like, I guess it could be. I don't know. He does not commit to ever saying, yes, it's them, or no, it's them. He stays right in the middle, but in that way, he kind of puts himself in neutral ground of not declaring himself as a Death Eater, but not declaring himself as an ally either. It's like he still feels like he doesn't really have a choice and he's just kind of operating on whatever plane that he can. Because he doesn't necessarily want to be a Death Eater and it shows, but he can't really do anything about it because his house is Voldemort's headquarters at the moment, so he can't really do much about that. So I do like that part of Malfoy Manor, and Wormtail showing mercy to Harry, which is the fulfillment of the foreshadowing we got from Prisoner of Azkaban. And then because he had shown mercy, the hand that Voldemort forged for him ends up strangling Wormtail, so he strangles himself to death. And that's how they're able to escape. And it wasn't just Luna as a student who was locked in the basement. Dean was there too, because Dean fled from Hogwarts and was wandering around, was with a group of other wizards and goblins that were killed, and the goblins fled. Dean got captured and put into prison with Luna and Ollivander. All of them escaped to Bill and Fleur's house at the cottage, and I still get sad, man. Dobby shouldn't have had to die. But that was one of the sadder moments of this book, was Dobby's death. That whole situation at Malfoy Manor was just very sad and depressing from the get-go. From the atmosphere to Hermione's torture to Dobby to even Wormtail to a degree, like the kind of self-pitying sadness that you have for him because of how he dies. All of that just made for a very dreary atmosphere. And then afterwards, after they get out of there, planning with Griphook and then going to Gringotts, it's a quick rebound, and I'm glad for that, because if they would have lingered too long on that, I think it would have made the book drag a little bit. One of the best things about this book, in particular to the later half of it, is that as soon as things start picking up and Harry realizes that, oh, we don't have much time left, he's on the move, he knows that we're hunting Horcruxes, he knows he's going to be checking all of the places he's hid them to see if they're left, and once he figures out that they're gone, he's going to go to Hogwarts, which is where the last one is. We've got to get there before he does. The book does a great job at not lagging. That shows a wonderful sense of urgency, and the pacing of that matches that urgency. And once the actual Battle of Hogwarts starts, Rowling captures so well the chaos that is war, that is fighting. That chaos is perfectly written, in my opinion, in the last part of this. But before we get to the actual battle, Harry's return to Hogwarts, with Aberforth finally describing, you know, what happened to Ariana, and then him letting them into Hogwarts, Neville and the others hiding in the room of requirement where it's safe from the Carrows, and then Harry finally saying that, like, hey, we're looking for something, we need to go. Him and Luna going to Ravenclaw's common room to look at the diadem, or the statue of the diadem that's on top of Rowena Ravenclaw's head, to being found out by the Carrows, because Voldemort knew that Harry would be returning, said to go look out at Ravenclaw's tower, so the Carrow was there. Harry and Luna leave the Ravenclaw tower after stunning one of the Carrows, I think the sister, and they leave, and the other Carrow, the brother, can't get inside, and he's yelling for somebody to let him in. McGonagall approaches him, and they're having this heated conversation. Carrow decides to spit on McGonagall, and Harry, hidden underneath the invisibility cloak, blows his own cover and stuns him. So I guess I'm reading two parts from this book. It's fine. As Amicus spun around, Harry shouted, "Crucio." The Death Eater was lifted off his feet. He writhed through the air like a drowning man, thrashing and howling in pain, and then, with a crunch and a shattering of glass, he smashed into the front of a bookcase and crumpled, insensible, to the floor. "I see what Bellatrix meant," said Harry, the blood thundering through his brain. You need to really mean it." "Potter!" whispered Professor McGonagall, clutching her heart. "Potter, you're here! What? How?" She struggled to pull herself together. "Potter, that was foolish." "He spat at you," said Harry. I love that. The bond that McGonagall and Harry have is so special. Like, her not only being the head of his house and them having that bond, but her knowing his whole history, how she's always taken care of him, how she's always given him advice and really had his back on things, even though sometimes she does punish him as he needed to be. I love their relationship. It's so great. And speaking of that relationship, it is McGonagall's voice that nearly breaks Harry whenever he is pretending to be dead, because McGonagall is the first one whenever Voldemort is bragging and boasting about killing Harry and Hagrid is carrying him. McGonagall is the first one to cry out saying no. And her response alone almost makes Harry break down, because he says that he couldn't imagine that sound coming from her voice. But it does, and that almost makes him just break down. I do love that. I love that. And McGonagall is awesome in the fight, like leading the charge and just going absolutely bonkers on all these Death Eaters. She is just taking charge. She is a very fierce fighter, very smart. Harry, of course, finds out where the diadem is. Him, Ron, and Hermione go to the room of requirement, where they end up finding it, but before Harry can grab it, he's confronted by Malfoy, Crabbe, and Goyle. Malfoy, again, kind of teetering on the edge a little bit by not wanting Crabbe and Goyle to kill Harry, because he's like, oh, well, nobody else can kill him but the Dark Lord. Like, he's the only one. I think it was a little more than that, just me personally, but I'm just saying, like, constantly shouting like, no, don't kill him, don't kill him. When Harry ends up saving Draco when they're running out and the fire is burning because Crabbe is dumb, him saving Hendrik is kind of funny. Draco's like, no, the exit's that way, where are you going? Because Harry's trying to get the diadem and Draco's like, no, we need to be going this way. It shouldn't have been funny, but it was. It was funny to me, because he's just like, no, you just saved me from burning. Why are we going back? Why are we going? The exit's that way. Actually, Harry ends up saving Draco's life again that night when Draco's actually about to be killed by a Death Eater, and Harry stuns the Death Eater, but then Ron gets a good one in and punches Draco. It's like, that's the second time, buddy. It's like, yeah, okay, he deserved that one. He deserved a good little punch that put him in his place, and I think he learned his lessons from then on. Oh, okay. So this is the one problem about a scene of war, because there's so much going on that it's very hard to get everything in order. So I'm just gonna the fight. It's a great fight, by the way, a great battle scene. I really like how it's depicted. I guess I'll just go ahead and start with the saddest part, is the deaths at the battle. Fred Weasley's death hurts me the most out of everybody's death. I have talked so much about the twins. I love the twins. They went on the Potter Talk or something, the little radio show that Lee Jordan had set up, and they were all using like false names so they couldn't be tracked. Fred being on there, everything that he had done with the Order, to him and George getting attacked while they were transferring Harry, George losing his ear, and the twins just being such a constant part of Harry's life and a constant part of the story. And to top it all off, to make it worse, and this is why it hurts more in the book than it ever does in the movie, because at the Battle of Hogwarts, as the Battle of Hogwarts is about to start, Percy comes back. He comes back and he apologizes and just kind of, in a way, begs for mercy from his family. I think Fred is the first one to be like, all right, we got you, you're back, and like shakes Percy's hand and accepts him back into the family. And so Percy is back and all the Weasleys are together again, and then we get Percy and Fred fighting against these Death Eaters together, Percy making a joke to Fred for like the first time ever. And then as Fred is laughing at that, that huge explosion goes off and it kills Fred. And Percy is left sobbing over his brother's body. And then taking his body from that chaos, him and Harry carrying Fred somewhere safer so that he could be out of the conflict, to the Weasleys' reactions whenever they see Fred, which that death was the most painful for me. The most painful for me. More than Remus and Tonks, which that one hurt too, because all in this book you have Remus battling with his decision to marry Tonks, because now Tonks is an outcast because of how everybody treats werewolves, and because Tonks is pregnant with a child, Remus doesn't want to be associated with them because he's like, no, it's better if they don't know their father. Maybe they won't be an outcast like me. I can only, hope and pray that I didn't pass what I have down to my child. That's just not fair. And Harry gives it to him straight. He actually is really harsh with Lupin about him being a coward and running away from his responsibilities as a father. And Remus finally owning up to that, being like, okay, no, you're right. You're right. I do need to be with my wife. I do need to be with my child. To him coming to the cottage on an emergency call just to announce that Teddy had been born and to brag about his newborn son to everybody, and then hug Harry and make Harry godfather of Teddy, of Remus's son, just like Sirius had been named godfather over James and Lily's son, hurts a lot. And then like knowing all of that, and then Tonks not being able to sit by and let Remus do this alone and not participate in the fight herself, and then both of them ending up dying together, leaving Teddy as an orphan. So crushing. Those were like the most impactful deaths that we've gotten. And it hurts. It hurts because of how well developed these side characters are. You have Harry, of course, finding Snape's memories as Snape is attacked by Nagini because Voldemort thinks that's how he's going to gain control over the Elder Wand. I almost said the Master Wand. Harry looking at Snape's memories, seeing how much he actually loved and cared for Lily, how much he really did admire and respect her and wanted her to be safe, and was devastated when she was killed, and how he swore to protect Harry from that moment on in Lily's stead, like as a penance to Lily. And we discovered that Snape is the one who has been keeping tabs on Harry all this time, from the moment he entered Hogwarts to his entire journey throughout, to even once they had left Hogwarts and were going on this journey alone. Snape was the one keeping tabs on them, making sure they were safe. He figured out where they were and was able to go place the sword there for Harry to find, and led them there with the silver doe. And it was another reason why he was so mad at Dumbledore whenever he realized that Dumbledore had raised Harry for slaughter, because he had done so much to protect Harry for Lily's sake. And I do think that he did actually care for Harry a little bit, because of his resemblance to Lily in his actions and through his eyes, of course. But he did grow to care for Harry a little bit, but a lot of it was because he had done all of this for Lily, and he felt like it was all going away for nothing because Harry was gonna die anyways. And of course, the scene is so iconic, the after all this time, and he says, always. That love that Snape had when everybody thought Snape was someone who was incapable of a feeling like love. That love that Snape had for Lily is what helped conquer Voldemort in the end. Because, as Dumbledore says all throughout, love is the most powerful magic. It is a magic that Voldemort himself does not know. He doesn't know about. He doesn't care to know, because he thinks love is worthless. Love doesn't mean anything. And Snape's love for Lily not only helped Dumbledore keep Harry alive, but it helped Harry stay alive even after Dumbledore was gone. And Snape's love is very strong, is very potent and powerful and it acts as a sort of protection for Harry because of how much he loved Lily. Then, of course, we get Harry's whole confrontation with Voldemort. From the point where Harry gets out of Snape's memories, realizing that he has to die in order to destroy Voldemort, not telling anybody that he's going to go give himself up because he knows if he tells anybody, they'll try to stop him. And he tells Neville along the way because Neville is by himself by chance. Neville being the other part of this prophecy, this would-be prophecy, he could have been the chosen one. Harry tells Neville to kill the snake, to kill Nagini, and then it's done. And he leaves, confronts Voldemort after getting the Resurrection Stone, after seeing his parents and Sirius and Remus, gets their comfort as he goes and has that courage to face death defenseless and willingly up against Voldemort, and Voldemort attempts to kill him. There's that whole conversation that he and Dumbledore have at King's Cross when they figure out that the Horcrux inside of Harry, the 7th Horcrux, he was the Horcrux Voldemort had never intended to make. Once that Horcrux was killed, Harry had the choice to come back, and he did. And when he did, who else comes up to him to discover he's alive than Draco's mother? I do love this about the Malfoy family, particularly Narcissa. They love their son. They will do anything to make sure Draco is safe. And as we learned, it was obvious in the last book, but Voldemort gave the task to Draco to kill Dumbledore, knowing he would fail, wanting him to fail as a punishment to Lucius and Narcissa, because he would take great pleasure in killing and torturing Draco as a way to punish them. He was doomed to fail from the very beginning. He was doomed with a task that he had no choice of, that he had no chance of. And his parents, realizing that he doesn't have that task anymore because Snape killed Dumbledore, wanting nothing more than to protect their son, to the point they don't care about Voldemort winning anymore. They don't care who wins in this war. And especially Narcissa, she just cares about her son. She just wants to know if he's alive and finds a way to get to him. Because I think we learned in the last book that Narcissa is very good at keeping people out of her mind. She is really good at blocking people from her thoughts. So who else would be perfect to lie bald-faced to the Dark Lord other than her? And she goes up to Harry and says, "Is Draco alive?" And he says, "Yes." From a mother's love, once again, Harry is saved. And she lies to Voldemort and says he's dead. And Voldemort parades him up to Hogwarts, proclaiming to everybody that he is dead. Neville, of course, Neville's been great this whole book. Neville is so brave and so just impassioned in this book. He's leading a rebellion in a sense this whole year at school. His grandmother is somehow a fantastic fighter and left a Death Eater in St. Mungo's and joins the Battle of Hogwarts like it's nothing. Okay. And Neville just is amazing. He's popping off in this book, and then he ends up standing up to Voldemort, saying he doesn't want to be a Death Eater. And as Voldemort is trying to hurt Neville by burning him to death, that's when the centaurs begin to interfere and Neville is freed. Neville ends up killing Nagini, setting Voldemort in a rage. Harry disappears under the cloak again, and everybody starts fighting until Bellatrix is killed by Mrs. Weasley, who displays an awesome amount of magic power to defend her children. And then Voldemort gets stopped by Harry, who reveals himself. And I wish so badly that they would have kept this fight, the fight between Voldemort and Harry. I wish they would have kept this fight in the movie because it is awesome, and the movie is it's so anticlimactic. The fight in the book is awesome because Harry is basically just talking smack and laying it all out to Voldemort like he is some dim-witted child who doesn't know what's going on. All of like the kids and the teachers, everybody is surrounding Voldemort and Harry in a circle. Voldemort and Harry are circling each other as Harry's just out here just proclaiming all this stuff, saying all this stuff, talking a good game, Harry is, and preparing for the final blow on Voldemort. And I love this because, one, there is a parallel between the protection Lily gave to Harry when Voldemort killed her to why why everybody at the castle is now under some sort of protection, why they can't be hurt. He says, "You won't be killing anyone else tonight," said Harry as they circled and stared into each other's eyes, green into red. "You won't be able to kill any of them ever again. Don't you get it? I was ready to die to stop you from hurting these people, but you did not. I meant to, and that's what did it. I've done what my mother did. They're protected from you. Haven't you noticed how none of the spells you put on them are binding? You can't torture them. You can't touch them. You don't learn from your mistakes, Riddle, do you?" Just he's talking smack. He's talking smack to Voldemort. He's making him angry. He is showing Voldemort up. He is basically putting Voldemort in his place, being like, no, you don't understand everything, so let me just explain why you screwed up, why you're gonna lose. And it goes on for a while. Like, Harry is laying it all out for Voldemort at this point. "But then, Potter, Dumbledore as good as gave me the wand." Voldemort's voice shook with malicious pleasure. "I stole the wand from its last master's tomb. I removed it against its last master's wishes. Its power is mine." You still don't get it, Riddle, do you? Possessing the wand isn't enough. Holding it, using it, doesn't make it really yours. Didn't you listen to Ollivander? The wand chooses the wizard. The Elder Wand recognized a new master before Dumbledore died, someone who never even laid a hand on it. The new master removed the wand from Dumbledore against his will, never realizing exactly what he had done, or that the world's most dangerous wand had given him its allegiance. Voldemort's chest rose and fell rapidly, and Harry could feel the curse coming, feel it building inside the wand pointed at his face. The true master of the Elder Wand was Draco Malfoy. Blank shock showed on Voldemort's face for a moment, but then it was gone. "But what does it matter?" he said softly. "Even if you are right, Potter, it makes no difference to you and me. You no longer have the Phoenix Wand. We duel on skill alone, and after I have killed you, I can attend to Draco Malfoy." "But you're too late," said Harry. "You've missed your chance. I got there first. I overpowered Draco weeks ago. I took this wand from him." Harry twitched the Hawthorn wand, and he felt the eyes of everyone in the hall upon it. "So it all comes down to this, doesn't it?" whispered Harry. "Does the wand in your hand know its last master was disarmed? Because if it does, I am the true master of the Elder Wand." One last attack from both of them. Voldemort tries to do the killing curse, and Harry fires Expelliarmus. It clashes, the Elder Wand goes flying into Harry's hand, and the killing curse rebounds back to Voldemort and kills him. And after he's down, everybody starts cheering and screaming and hugging Harry, and there's a physical body that shows that Voldemort's dead. I love that whole fight. I love that last sequence between Harry and Voldemort. It's like a perfect last match between them, where it is now Harry who has the upper hand and more knowledge about magic and what is going on than Voldemort, who is obviously more wise because he's lived longer. He knows maybe more advanced magic, darker magic, but Harry has a better grasp on the magic that they are performing that makes him better than Voldemort, and it's wonderful to see. In the aftermath of the battle, everybody is kind of intermingling with everybody. You have all different houses sitting together. It's house elves sitting with the wizards, and everybody mingling like nothing, and treating Grop the same way they would treat anybody else, everybody being happy. Even the Malfoys never left during the battle. They stayed. And they even stayed in Hogwarts in the aftermath. They were a little unsure of like if they were going to be welcome, but they stayed along and nobody ever really said anything to them. They never ran from that last battle. Harry explaining to Ron and Hermione once and for all what happened and getting the final confrontation with Harry and Dumbledore in the headmaster's office with Dumbledore's portrait, where Harry basically says, in coded terms of course, that hey, I have to go get the resurrection stone. I dropped it back there somewhere, but I'm keeping my invisibility cloak. He says, I'm keeping Peverell's gift to me. And that's kind of the end of that. And then we get that scene 19 years later where Harry and Ginny are together and married, have their kids, and they're about to be sent off to Hogwarts. We get mention of Ron and Hermione's kids. We get a mention of Draco's child. We hear about Teddy again. We know that Neville is a teacher at Hogwarts. And that's kind of how this whole series ends. I really love this series. It's been such a great reread, and I really love this book. This book probably ranks in like my top 3 for the whole series. It's amazing. But yes, I love this book. I love this one. This one's amazing. It hurts me a lot, but it's so good. Definitely one of the better ones. That finishes up Harry Potter. That finishes up all 7 books. I probably could talk about this one in detail for a lot longer, but this is already a really long segment, so I'm not gonna do that. But that's all for this one, so I'll see y'all all in the outro. So that is all for this readathon. I hope y'all have enjoyed it. Again, as I said in the beginning, this has been such fun for me to do. I've thoroughly enjoyed reading these books and individually sitting down and talking about them and then putting them together to compile this video. It's been so much fun and I've really enjoyed it. I would love to do another readathon like this. Of the 7 books, I think Prisoner of Azkaban is one of my favorites. My least favorite book, I would say, has to be Order of the Phoenix. Is because of, I guess, Harry's attitude in Order of the Phoenix. It just really brought down my thoughts on it and how I took in the book. Ron had issues throughout the series that I didn't like, and it made it less enjoyable to read about his character, but it didn't ruin the overall story for me. And I think favorite characters, of course, Hermione would be one of my favorites, Ginny, Neville, Harry, and Draco, like top 5 students. Those are my top 5. I love all of them. They're so great. And I adore a lot of these side characters that we get outside of school with like the Order of the Phoenix or the Weasleys. There's a lot of great side characters out there. Luna is definitely like, if I had to name the top 5, Luna is number 6. She'd be in the top 6. Because she's great. I love her little whimsical personality. I love her. But thank you all so much for watching. I really hope y'all enjoyed it. I really appreciate y'all being here and watching this video. If you haven't seen all of my other videos, like the first part of the Harry Potter readathon or any of the other videos I've posted during the month of October or previously, please go to my channel and check it out. I would really appreciate that. Other than that, be sure you're on the lookout for next week. My Halloween video will be coming out. Be on the lookout for that one. That one's going to be fun. Other than that, thank you again for watching this video, and I will see you next time, scholars. Bye!